I welcome you all on the behalf of Cyrox, the Science Club of GNU, to our talk titled Physics, Maths and Us. Today amongst us, we have Mr. Rajesh Kumar, who is working as a senior research fellow at NIT Jalandhar. He did his master's from Punjab University, Chandigarh in 2014, and then after he joined various teaching programs and joined Department of Physics as a doctorate student in 2017 under the supervision of Dr. Arvind Kumar. He has noted publications in noted journals, and he has also last year he also got a chance to visit CERN on a fully funded basis. And now I will like to invite Mr. Rajesh Kumar to kindly start the talk and share it with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Abhijit, for this nice introduction. So I'm very thankful for the invitation to share my views about the physics method as concept, and I'm also very thankful to Dr. Bindia for giving me this opportunity to present myself. So first of all, outline is there. So I will first of all cover the introduction part and then go to the symmetries. I will introduce about nature and the conservation law, how these are connected with symmetries, and then I will talk about the particle physics symmetries and how it is related, how can we relate the rigorous mathematical calculations with these basic laws. Then I will touch little bit about the grand unification theory, give you the idea, and at last talk about theory of everything and summarize the whole concept. Okay, so just moving on. Okay, so here I have a screen with lot of physics equations. Okay, so you can see there are this lambda guy here, this E guy here, omega guy here. So this each mathematical relation represent a physical quantity, physical measurable quantity. It's some represent some law, some represent some different things. Like let's pick this guy, the lambda. It just represents some wavelength of for some potential, and this guy here f naught is the frequency of a pendulum, and this d dot ds is equal to q, just Gauss's law in dielectric, and this is, I guess, Ampere's circuital law, Poynting vector, and the famous E is equal to mc square, the energy relation, mass energy relation. So what we got here, the physics and math are equivalent. We can talk about, these are just mathematical equation. There is a physical interpretation for each and every relation, and the main idea is, the main thing is, I know each and everyone. So jokes apart, let me move to the other slide now, symmetries in nature. So before going further, let us talk about what is symmetries. What is basically a symmetry? Symmetry is anything, a pattern which repeats itself. When you can't distinguish one thing with each other thing, then there is a symmetry. So in nature, we have, for example, this microscopic image of ice flake. You can see there is a symmetry in angles. In every minute detail, there is a symmetry. Similarly, in this flower, there is a color symmetry, the angular symmetry. See how beautiful the nature is. Who designed this? Why there is a equal proportion kind of thing there. Similarly, this is a certain plant, I don't know its name, and there's a symmetry as well, angular symmetry, I guess. And there is a spiral symmetry in galaxy, Andromeda maybe. And there is a guy, it is not symmetric, it is asymmetric, and it should not be there. Sorry about that. So there is a palm symmetry, okay, and our the lines on our hand, and at last there is another kind of a spiral symmetry. So another example of you can say the discrete symmetry or a mirror image. You can also relate it to parity. You know, when you in a wave function, when you replace x to minus x, it if it remains psi x, then it is called a positive parity. If it becomes minus psi x, it is called negative parity. Similarly, I will just talk about the mirror symmetry here. So let's pull some guy here, but about Einstein, and I will dissect him, and let's see if the image is symmetric. No, it is not. It is symmetric with the minus sign. It's anti-symmetric, I will say. Similarly, but the main idea what I am sharing is the mirror symmetry here. So mirror symmetry depends upon the axis of dissection here. Like for this, these letters A, M, U, W, we can say if the axis of dissection is in the middle, or you can say the vertical axis, then it is symmetric about that, whether A, M, U, W, or maybe other characters. Similarly, if there is a horizontal axis, then these letters E, B, C, D are symmetric about that. What about D and P? No, they are not symmetric, but we have also chosen the dissection axis somewhere else, but they are not symmetric under the mirror transformation. So this is the concept of symmetry and how it relates to the mirror symmetry. So in nature, what kind of symmetries we have? We have discrete symmetries. We have another one called continuous symmetry. So what do you mean by discrete? Discrete is which is not continuous, which have a point-to-point information, where we have every knowledge of different point, and it depends upon each point discretely. And in other words, we can say asymmetry is a discrete when there is a finite number of transformations that leave an observable quantity invariant. So, for example, we have this psi. Let us say this represents some physical quantity in first stage, and we apply some operator here, e to power iota rt. Let us say this is just a. When we apply a on psi, it just moves psi to something other. Let's say psi dash, and this is called a transformation operator. So the transformation operator can be discrete, can be continuous. So in this case, in the discrete symmetry case, if I use this angle 60 degree and it is symmetric, if I rotate it with the angle 60 degree, the whole thing will remain invariant. So that is a finite number of transformation. You cannot choose any angle. It's just 60 degree or maybe 120 degree or multiple of 60. So you cannot use 55, 54. These are not allowed. These are called discrete symmetries or transformations. Similarly, on the other hand, we have a continuous symmetry. This is characterized by an invariance following a continuous change in the transformation of a system. For this example, you can see the circle. There must be some center with radius r. You know, if I rotate this circle with any angle, the circle is symmetric. This type of symmetry is called continuous symmetry. Now, do not restrict to the angle itself. It can be anything. It's just a naive example I'm sharing it. So we have three basic symmetries in physics. However, there are so many symmetries, but just talk about basic symmetries. First of all, we have this homogeneity of space. That space is homogeneous everywhere. It is alike. Whether I will discuss this in detail in the next slide. Second is isotropy of space. The rotation of space. If a physical quantity is rotating with some angle, then the physics remains same. This respects the isotropy of space, and similarly homogeneity of time. So the law does not change with respect to time, whether it is past, whether it is present, whether it is a future. So let us take example of this homogeneity of space. So consider a proton in somewhere in, I guess, China or Russia. The physical laws, so there are some physical laws associated with it, some parity, some charge, force, etc., etc. And there is another proton in some New Jersey or somewhere in US. So basically, the physics law are same whether the proton is in the China or whether it is in New York. It does not matter whether it is in a third world. the law remains same. So the space is homogeneous everywhere. The law of physics remains everywhere the same. The basic law which I'm talking about. And similarly, what about isotropy of space? If a physical quantity is measured in a certain coordinate system, let us say x, y, in a two-dimensional picture, and afterwards, if I rotate it with some theta angle, make the new axis x dash and y dash, the mathematics which represent the physical quantity may change, but the basic idea, the basic law always remain same. So that was also discussed in the previous continuous symmetry section. And if I want to go from one coordinate system, that is nu, to nu dash, I need some transformation. A matrix, you say operator, since there is a theta parameter by which I have changed the system, therefore the transformation matrix depends upon the theta. So do not get confused here, because z axis is outside, pointing outside the screen, and it is symmetric along z because the rotation is along z axis. That's why it is 3D matrix. So what about homogeneity of time here? In very simple and funny way, I can say, if I am lazy, or I can say I'm very relaxed in the past, and today in the lockdown situation, I am also lazy and I can't change myself. I can't wake up early in the morning and all the things. It will remain in the future. The laws, the basic law, the very basic laws are same. So it does not matter what your mom says. So in other words, I can say the physical laws always remain same, whether it is a 10 to power way back in time, whether it is 10 to power 9 years way forward in time, does not matter. The value of gravity g is equal to 9.8, let us say, remains always same. There must be some significant digits misplaced, or you can say the change in significant digits, but it is related to statistics and all, and error analysis, but the physics remains same. It cannot be till 12, the value can't be 12. However, for a safe side, we can say, okay, there is another theory, the modified version of gravity, which creates different g, but for the time being, that is not the case here. We are not discussing about the laws which are not existed yet. So the whole crux of this presentation is about symmetry, invariance, and conservation law, how these things are related to each other. So it is very simple that if there is a symmetry, there must be a pattern. Pattern is what? There is a similarity. Okay. And if there is a similarity, you can say there is some invariance. There is some constant quantity which is repeating itself. And this constant quantity is leading us to some conservation law. So it was this great mathematician, Amy Noether, who gave us this idea, the very basic idea of the universe. She was a mathematician, and she talked about, she solved the basic problem of the physics. So each continuous symmetry of a system is equivalent to a measurable quantity. If there is a symmetry, continuous symmetry, then it is equivalent. It will give us some conserved quantity. So this is also called as Noether theorem. A quantity is conserved when it does not vary during a given process. For example, very naive example, money changes hands in a transaction, but the total amount of money before and after the transaction is same. This is just like continuity equation, whether you talk about the water running in the pipe, or the divergence and Kuhl theorem and all. These things are very much related. So what she did, she related symmetry to the conservation law. How? In the next slide we will talk about. So So she related the very this conservation law, linear momentum, to the homogeneity of space. If we use the symmetry in the first place, then derive all the physics from that using the calculus of mathematical tools such as calculus, derivatives, and integration, you can turn out to be a linear momentum. And similarly, for isotropy of space, the law which we talk about is angular momentum. And similarly, the conservation of energy comes from the homogeneity of time. In your BSc classical mechanics, in I guess first year, you might have derived these all laws from the these symmetries. So you can see how powerful is the symmetry, the basic law that should remain everywhere conserved in every point of the universe. It can be any. These three laws should be same. However, the fourth law is also mass somewhere, but it is mass and energy. They are equivalent as proven by Einstein by his famous equation. So uses of symmetry or invariance. So let me share you this naive example here. So let us assume this is a zebra crossing. This is not, I know, but still just assume. Now there is a symmetry. You can see there is a pattern. There is some constant quantity, constant length that separates these things. And if you number this, there are total 16 lines, and with the gap of 2 in each, so 16 multiplies 2 becomes 32. So this is very simple. It saves a lot of time. But when there is a asymmetry like these zebra is I don't know why it is called so zebra, or it is not a zebra, and it is distinct. There is no pattern. Okay, I can't think about any pattern from this. So there is no invariance. There is no constant quantity. So it's not simple enough to calculate the distance here, the total distance. So I'm very sad that I can't get the whole part from a part. So this is the power of symmetry here. This is very naive example, but it gives you the idea. So in this case, I can get the whole part from a part, but in this case, I can't get the whole part from a part. So here is another example how physics and math are related. Okay, so I will take one conservation law here, conservation of angular momentum. You will see that the mathematics will tell us about how the physics will behave. So you all know the sun revolves around the earth. No, it is not correct. Copernicus will kill me for this statement. The earth revolves around the sun, and let us talk about these two extreme, one extreme and one nearest position. This is 1 and this is 2. So you know, by the Kepler law, if the distance is very long, you can say the velocity is very less, and if distance is less, the velocity is more. That is all concept of Kepler's aerial velocity law. But we can also think about it in terms of angular momentum. So what the conservation of angular momentum tell us about? The for a system, in each point, the angular momentum should be conserved. The value of angular momentum at first place should be equal to the value of angular momentum at second place. So just write down the mathematics here. So it should be mv1 r1 is equal to mv2 r2, and when we do some math, we get this relation. So it basically simply telling us that V1, if R1 is greater, then V1 is less. If R2 is less, then V2 is greater, vice versa. So this the physics which is happening in the universe is just, we got this from these minute equations, the simple equality. Symmetry has a very, fundamental role in the relativity itself. The postulates of relativity, the physical law will remain same, should remain same in all inertial frames of reference. I'm not talking about here non-inertial. Let's just put it aside. And the second postulate of relativity says that the light c, the constant should be same irrespective of the choice of frame. You can't add some quantity in C. It will also always remain C. You can't subtract it either. So the in relativity, you know, the idea is you have to observe one physical process from through two different observation point, two different, let us say, coordinate system. To do this, we need certainly a transformation. Let us say this is Galilean or Lorentz transformation. So I will talk about the more the version 2 of the transformation in the case of relativity, that is Lorentz transformation here. So Lorentz transformation is the mathematical connection how one frame is related to the another frame for one physical process or another physical process. So this is a direct Lorentz transformation, and this is indirect Lorentz transformation. So I will talk about this later a bit more deep. So next is the Lorentz invariance. So there is an invariance, there is some symmetry. So for that symmetry, there comes a invariance. And you know, if there is a symmetry, how will you check there is a symmetry? You need some transformation. For that case, the symmetry in relativity, we have this Lorentz transformation and we have this Lorentz invariance. You know, the acceleration force, you derived all these thing in your undergrad course, that these quantities are invariant under Lorentz transformation. The wave equation is invariant under Lorentz transformation, and the Maxwell's equation itself are invariant under Lorentz transformation. And you know, if I talk about the version 1 of the relativity, that was the Galilean Newtonian relativity, the Galileo gave us this Galilean transformation. And was the wave equation invariant under Galilean transformation? No, it was not. So if the Galilean, the wave equation was, let us forget about, we don't have Lorentz transformation yet. Only we have Galilean transformation. If the wave equation is invariant, not invariant, let me repeat that. If wave equation is not invariant under Galilean transformation, it means that either the wave equation is wrong or the transformation is wrong. At that time, the physics was not well developed, so there was a confusion which one is right. But later on, they realized that the wave equation is a fundamental quantity. Okay, it should remain invariant. They have produced wave equation from several ways, but in this case, when we talk about this Michelson-Morley experiment, to explain the null result, they introduced this Lorentz-Fittergald correction, which later tells us about the Lorentz transformation. And when we apply to the Lorentz transformation to all these things, we get that these all remains invariant. That means Galilean transformation are not real one. That does not respect the symmetry. What respect the symmetry is the Lorentz transformations. And I would also like to talk about here about the electricity and magnetism. Before Maxwell, it was uncertain that the magnetism and electricity is a single thing. They deal electricity as a one thing, and magnetism as another thing. But later on, when Maxwell gave this idea, coupled this equation in this 4 equation, they got that the electricity and magnetism are not separate thing but a single one. So they are symmetric. The symmetry is broken somehow. They got separated, electricity and magnetism. They have 2 other versions, but in fact at the first place they are symmetric. They are single force. So now symmetries in particle physics. Start with the gauge symmetries. Gauge, you may have heard this term in your +1, +2 classes, like gauge, meter gauge, I guess. When you measure the length of a quantity up to certain significant digit, up certain limit of error. So gauge is nothing but related to a scale, a measure. measure. Whenever there is a when you think about a change in a system, measure in a system, we just say is a gauge symmetry, or you can say the gauge transformation, which you heard in this, and also you have derived in this electricity and magnetism. Okay, you just see how things become different in a two other reference frame. And the gauge symmetries are of two kind. Sorry. One is a global transformation, another is a local transformation. First, we talk about the global transformation. Global means all, everywhere. So if at each space-time point, the physics does not depend upon the each individual point, that is called the global transformation. Let me draw this lattice. Let us say I have this space-time lattice. Pardon me for my bad drawing. So let us say this is the space-time lattice, and at some point here, this is represent x, t, whatever, some quantity, some coordinate, generalized coordinate, you can say. So for each point, like whether we are here or whether we are here, if the physical system, the physical interaction does not depend upon the individual point, then this type of transformation is called global transformation. We don't care about what is the value of x here, what is the value of x here. But in the local transformation, if we have a different change at all points, like here for this point, if the physical system depends upon the information, individual information of the space-time lattice point, like it depends, it respect the value of x1, x2, x3, x4. That means it this type of transformation is a local one. You can't ignore these contribution. This is just a classification. If the system is something like global, same change at all point, this is called global transformation. So gravitational force, we have this the contents here and all these. The basic idea is here, for each interaction there should be some exchange of force. If there is exchange of force, there should be some carrier. Okay, so what are the carriers for different field? For gravitational, graviton, that is assumed, not discovered yet. For weak, we have W plus, W minus, and Z boson, which are very heavy. And electromagnetic, we have photon. Strong, we have gluons. Now these gluons and photons are massless, but these weak force carrier are not massless. There's another question. However, we will talk about this later. So you can see somehow they are coupled. Like I talked about, electricity and magnetism are not two different forces, but a single force. Similarly, the weak and electromagnetic are also one force. It was clubbed by Glashow, Salam, and Weinberg, famous model, and Abdus Salam got Nobel for this thing, this contribution. Now, this I would like to talk about the Standard Model here. So Standard Model is what? This is a theory which describes the strong force, electromagnetic force, and weak force. So except gravitons. So in this Standard Model, we have a Lagrangian. Lagrangian is a quantity, scalar quantity, which is much easier, which is used to describe the physics of a system, and that is much easier if you use simple kinematics law, like Newton's motion and all. We can use just directly a Lagrangian, put it in the Euler-Lagrange equation, give some information about the potential and kinetic energy of the system, and eventually within no time you get the equation of motion. So this is a very interesting concept. So Lagrangian, which is a basic, which tells us about the basic quantities of the physical system, which basic characteristic of the physical system, must respect the basic symmetry properties like space translation, time translation, isotropy, or Lorentz transformation. So the equation must satisfy three local gauge invariants on the internal space of the particles. What does that mean? If this is a symmetry in particle physics, it must respect the symmetry of particles which are global or local gauge invariants. Now in particle physics, global is also important, but local is very important. Like for each, we need in each information of each point of a system to derive a well theory. So we have a strong force which is equivalent to some symmetry named as SU3 color symmetry, where SU means special unitary, 3 present its generators. Special unitary, why it is called special unitary, that is another thing, because its determinant is 1. And second one is the weak force, which respect the SU2 symmetry. Here generators are 2, a flavor we can also say, in other words. And third one is the U1 symmetry, that respect the electromagnetism. For each physical force, there is a different symmetry. And for different symmetry, we have some invariance and conservation law. We have so many conservation law in strong force. They are not basic, but they are derived from these things here. Whether you can call this color quantum number, the lepton number, the hypercharge and all. So these all symmetries contain huge and rigorous mathematical equation, like group use the mathematical topologies like group theory and all. Mathematics is different, but the idea is very simple, that by using the mathematics you conclude the properties of the system. So I will give you another example how physics and math are interrelated. Sometimes physics tells us about how to proceed, sometimes math tells us about how to proceed. They are interrelated with each other, and we always use this concept. Sometimes we use hit and trial. We have equation, we know this result should be like this because the physics is saying something like this, and we use some tweak in the mathematical equation and we get the result. Then after we think, okay, let's talk about this, how to prove the mathematical insertion that we have added, that is correct. Like I'm just remembering this example, when you this electromagnetic wave equation, when you modified the fourth Maxwell equation and use insert this curly E by curly theta. It was just a mathematical of a curl should be equal to 0, and using this concept, the mathematical preservance, they introduce some quantity to make it 0, and later on realize that okay, the curly E by curly T is making it 0. Oh, that means there must be some time changing electric field in the system, and which later on we realized, which explain the capacitive process. So in this example here, we have a Lagrangian of a system. I have chosen a scalar meson Lagrangian, very simple, naive example. So here, this Lagrangian should be invariant under global transformation. It's a very basic quality of particle physics, Lagrangian. Similarly, it should be invariant under local transformation, but unfortunately, it is not. So it is not preserving the basic symmetry physics. So what to do now? So either our Lagrangian is wrong or our transformations are wrong. So our transformations are not wrong because we have applied it so many times and we got the results. And what we do, it's again a fine tuning. We use the modified derivative. We say the covariant derivative with some parameter a mu, which is basically a potential. And later on they know, okay, this is some potential, and they explain this. So what they did, they just put this quantity in this, and when they use then when they applied the phi transformation, the local transformation, the Lagrangian become invariant. So by using the symmetry property, they calculated this. Now how to explain this a mu potential? Okay, That's another physics problem which was also explained. Now, what we got here is that the symmetry leads us to more puzzles and obviously hence more discoveries. And history repeats itself. So another examples, I will talk about few things about each of these. Like mathematical induction is a very naive example again, that you assume that n is equal to k, and by using this assumption you derived whole thing for n is equal to k plus 1, and that is correct, mathematically and physically correct. But there are so many theorems which interrelates math with physics, like Noether theorems. We have another. Similarly, we have numerical analysis, for example. Somehow I am unable to use annotate mode here, so I will just explain in words. Like we are studying a graph, and it is decreasing, let us say, and what I'm trying to say is, if I know, let us assume that we have this much line here, from here to here, and we want to know what should be the value of this physical quantity at this point. Okay, simply you can extrapolate this, okay, and you will get the result. And this extrapolation, by using certain methods, Lagrange interpolation, extrapolation, or we can say we have these other interpolation method of freedom here. It can move anywhere, okay, because this is the same potential, it can move anywhere. But the caution is here, the symmetry is broken here. But is it helpful? Yes, it is helpful. The Glashow, Weinberg and Salam explain the masses of omega plus minus and z boson on the basis of this example, this Mexican head potential. And the famous Higgs was also explained is in terms of this. So the broken symmetry is very necessary. So I will explain in the next slide how. So and let me erase this if I can. Okay. Yeah. So this is a Big Bang chart here, the origin of the universe. So far, so widely accepted theory about the beginning of the universe. So in the very beginning of the universe, when area was less and temperature was very high, there is something called chiral symmetry. In this chiral symmetry, the mass of the we can't distinguish particles on the basis of mass. It was alike everywhere. Every particle was alike each other. So we say this chiral symmetry. And when the area expand with respect to time and temperature gets low, the individual quarks and gluons fuse with each other, and it found a bond system that is called hadrons, and they have a specific mass. And this regime is called broken symmetry, chiral broken symmetry, we can say. So we have a different version of two regime, different physics there, but that does not mean the fundamental physics is broken there. If the symmetry is broken, it is alive in some another form in the next regime, and it further get broken, it is alive in some another form. So it always works like this. So all the forces were same in the very beginning of the universe. Why I'm saying this, I can show in the next plot. Okay. Yeah. So this is the plot that tells us about the coupling constant of three different forces with respect to energy. We know at the very beginning, the universe energy was somewhere around 10 to power 19 giga electron volt. Okay, and this is the coupling constant. What is the coupling constant? Which tells us about how strong or weak a force is. So by the symmetry argument, way back in time, all forces will remain, should be same. Okay, but when we plot so far we have this standard model physics. Using this physics, when we plot the three coupling constant here, we got, okay, they are not fusing with with each other at some point. So this means either symmetry is nature does not respect symmetry, or there is some problem in the model. So what was the result? Yes, there is a problem in the model, and scientists think about another model. We say supersymmetry, that's a purely theoretical model, and by this model they expect that the coupling constant should merge around some point in very high energy, but still we don't have empirical evidences with respect to this, so this is also not well accepted yet. So this was about the grand unification theory, the coupling of three fundamental forces, and describing these all forces with respect to one theory, grand unification theory. And by the similar argument, the gravitational force should also fuse with these three other forces. So this will describe our whole universe. So this theory is called theory of everything. What is the problem here? For each fundamental theory, we have the quantum version, like strong force is a quantum force, weak force is a quantum force, electricity, magnetism is a mixture. However, it has QED, quantum electrodynamics. So we don't have quantum gravity so far. We don't have mathematical structure to define all these things. We have Einstein's general theory of relativity, which explains a lot about the outer space, but still we don't have the equations. So we are far behind from this. We don't know when we get this, but the observatories like LIGO and all are working towards this fusion. Similarly, another example here. So this is a standard model particles, and it is a huge, groundbreaking discovery, Higgs boson, and it wants to be coupled with the gravity. So that raises the fundamental question somehow, that what came first, murgi ya anda, a hen or a egg? So this is a very tedious question, and there are huge debates about this. Who is the creator and all? So we are not pushing this thing here. So I can share about the idea of the Darwin or another astrophysicist like Neil, that another thing contain. That is a mystery how things works, how we get the energy to move. We are just like a lot of particles, molecules. But what gives us consciousness? This is still a question. But okay, anyhow, this does not trouble me a lot. And okay, we have done so good so far. But what about the word us in title? So I have not touched that part. How are we connected with these things? Like first of all, symmetry argument is there. So everywhere nature is symmetric. I have given you a few examples in the very beginning of this lecture, and you can see every person surrounding in our surroundings, they have same elements, they have same proton, neutron, they have in the discrete level, in the quantum level, they are like. What makes us different is the superficial structure that play a substantial role in our life, but that is not correct. So the geological condition, that all matters for a superficial thing, okay, superficial structure. The second is argument is very nice, and I love this. Geology, how geology and other natural physical phenomena deals with the human or any other animals. Like sometimes I think about, okay, why not nature is prejudiced? Okay, let's save him, not her, or other way around. If you are a feminist, pardon me for the joke. And okay, so if there is an earthquake, and any volcano eruption or say tsunami, they will never ask what is your identity. Okay, they will never ask you, okay, you are Einstein or Schrodinger, what is your surname? They will never ask. They will just, okay, you do not respect physics. Okay, they are not going to ask you. I'm just giving you example. Okay, if there is a the physics has to be conserved, they will not ask you. They will simply rush you down. They will destroy you. So nature never asks. Nature never prejudice about the things. So my question is for the all human race, or animal can't listen. So for the human race is that if nature do not differentiate while judging, while doing, and why we judge, why we do such thing. And this is very fundamental. We get this idea from physics itself. Physics, science, mathematics, you can say it anything you want. So let's talk about this famous quote from Neil deGrasse Tyson, that the good thing about science is that it's true whether you believe it or not. So it will remain the same. It does not depend you believe. I believe something that make it real. This is not a kind of a thing here. The F is equal to ma is a thing here. Okay, it is. It does not matter whether I believe the angular momentum conserves or not, the linear momentum conserves or not. So this was all about from my side for this presentation. I hope you enjoyed this talk, and if you have feedback, I want actually to you to give me honest feedback. And I urge the host to share the feedback form among the participants. And if you have any question, you can ask me now.
Okay, so it is said that physics and maths is the language of the nature. And this was quite in a very, very good manner showed by our speaker, Mr. Rajesh Kumar, how symmetries in the nature and the symmetries that we usually observe in physics and maths are inherently connected. So any questions?
Hi Rajesh, hope you are fine. Myself Dr. Pargin Mangotra, and I am an assistant professor in Sharda University. I was also a passed out from NIT Jalandhar. So Rajesh, my question is that how we can study the stability of the particles in physics, and basically from the particle physics. How we can study the stability of particles?
First of all, please clear your question. Which stability you are talking about?
Just like as the what about the real condition about the stability of the protons? Because there are two or three theories. According to standard model, it should be decayed, but according to standard model,
okay,
it should be conserved. So what is the exact situation? I think this is the question from the nuclear physics background, but I think the answer is in the hide inside the particle physics. That is why I'm asking it from you.
I don't think the particle physics have its answer, because the decay, some people say the proton decay is stable, but its lifetime is way beyond the lifetime of a universe. So that is a big problem for the particle physicist. So far, the theory we have covered, the standard model and SUSY and all, we can't say about these things.
Okay. So in the deep inside those theories, this kind of things is not covered.
No, we can talk about the neutron and all, but since the proton decay has as I said, the greater lifetime than the universe lifetime itself, so it is not a the standard model kind of a problem. We should push somewhere in SUSY that we can talk about, but still we have not gotten any progress here so far. I remember.
It means that just I think that in the age of the universe depends on the proton's decay time. The age of this universe also depends on the
age of the
age of the universe also depends on the decay of the protons.
No, it does not depend on decay of the proton. I don't think so.
Okay. Very nice presentation, Rajesh. You have very nice presentation.
Hello everyone. My name is Malika. and I am an MSc student at NIT Jalandhar. And my question is, do Noether theorem apply to discrete symmetry?
No, neither theorem does not cannot be applied to the discrete symmetries, because it is designed so that we can have the observable, the conserved quantity from the continuous one. So and in fact, if we see nature, we have continuous symmetries like the global and local transformation are in continuous symmetries. In fact, so the basic symmetries in natures are continuous one.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. It was very nice, and I'm happy to see the Science Club of GNDU organizing so many talks and webinars. And I thank Abhijit for taking an initiative to invite Rajesh for it. And thank you, Rajesh. Thanks a lot. Learned about symmetries, and maybe I have some questions I would like to talk to you maybe some other time. So thanks a lot. I would like to end the meeting here and see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.